Hello everybody and welcome to another basing episode. This one is really going to be different. It's something I haven't tried to record before, so we'll see how this goes. It could be a little mischievous because these static grass applicators can sometimes throw grass in places you never quite expect them to go. That is why I had to make a whole new filming station for this, because this puts out static. So you really want things like, I don't know, phones, computers, those kind of things a fair distance away. This, it's from, I think, War Games, something Scenics. They're in the UK, but you can get these on Warlord's website. We're going to use a few different products right here, mostly because not everybody has all the stuff. Now, WWS, they do have actually things like 2mm static grass, 4mm static grass, and this is the other. Actually, this is the most important thing and the hardest to find. And they do actually have some, and I've even found it on Amazon under the WWS name, 6mm grass, because this is what makes the tufts the tufts. So I've got a few examples here. What's left of mine, I kind of have to do one of these because I have very little left, you can see. But as I hold it at an angle like that, see how tall that is? That's the 6mm grass. 2 and 4 fills it out, but it's the 6mm grass that'll give you that tuft. Now, you can see we just got some cardboard here. We got some parchment paper, like so. I guess maybe the fancier the parchment paper, the flatter it's going to stay. We've got, like I said, a few different types of grass. So here is, I think this is also some 4mm over here, but you can see we got sort of a fall and then a summer. We've got spring. Here is, this is again another type of grass we're going to use. So we're going to blend these around. We're going to try and make different seasons of tufts. But the key is 2, 4, 6. You have to have all three. If you're missing one of those, I tried doing. Do I still have some here? Yeah, I think these are some of my original tufts that I tried making with the 2 and the 4. And I think I even tried chopping out of desperation some longer reeds into. That didn't work because that all got stuck in this item right here. So as we take this apart, this is pretty much the business end of everything right here. So this is a battery operated thing. Hopefully the battery's still good. You switch this on, it builds up a charge, which then is passed into your piece of cardboard here. So we have to actually put a nail in this to sort of ground that, and then it's static. Now they sell their official basing glue here. Now you can see this is almost gone. We'll try and make as many as we can out of that. This is not horrible as far as a substitute for it, so we'll try both, see what we get. Okay, there's really not all that much more, and as far as materials go, it's how many different colors do you want. And we're just going to make grass tufts here. We're going to make a ton of grass tufts, and then in a subsequent episode, then we'll try and tackle things like the flowers and the shrubs, because that's more than I want to deal with in one. Enough static and glue and everything else. So what we're going to do is let's see, I think we were going to start out with some summer tufts, because why not? Which means here's our summer grass, there's our 6, and there's our 4. So we're going to start up with that in just a bit. So we're ready to do some summer tufts, and here's a few, what would you call them, the hard lessons learned. First things first, so you see we got our metal pin, it's grounded into this. This will give you a bit of a buzz, so when you turn this thing on, you touch that, you're dealing with electricity. Now it's not necessarily going to make you blow your head off or something like that, but you'll feel it. Oh yeah. So again, exercise a little bit of caution for that. Now the other thing you're going to want is something like this, same old thing we use for our snow gravel mix, all that kind of stuff, because what you have to do, and I believe I have, yeah, So you see we have ourselves, here's a little bit of a mix that we made. Now here I actually put some of that light brown grass in there, so you mix all of them together in one tuft here. And the other thing you do is you put your basing glue, you put that out here in little dots. And the thing I learned right away is don't put out too many dots, because as you put these out, you run the risk of the glue drying before the static hits it. And it's fun to make the big giant ones, but again, the glue can dry faster, weird things can happen, and it's sometimes hard to stick those onto your bases. So there is kind of a certain size that, and you'll get the feel for it as you go along. Okay, now let's make ourselves a batch of just, we'll go straight up green with this. So we don't need the 2 mil because we got that over here. So we're going to grab some 2 out of here. At least I think this is 2. It could be a 2 and a 4, but I'm just going to assume that it is 2. And sometimes you just gotta, yeah, that might be a 2-4 mix. But we're going to leave a bunch of that out there. Then we're going to get this out of the way. And we also have some of this. See that really deep dark green? Woodland Scenics also has a bunch of this. So here we're going to mix a little bit of that in there, maybe a touch more. And once you start to mix it, you don't even really notice that it's in there anymore. So we're going to close that. We're going to set that off to the side. And now this is the big thing. Our 6 mil grass. The other thing, timing is important, to say the least. That's why I'm doing this first, because if I put my glue out there first, or if I turn this thing on, the battery's wearing down and that sort of things. I am actually going to turn this on, so my light is on. I assume I am building it. Whoa, okay. I had this thing sitting on top of this, and immediately the grass started to stand up on end. So I think that lets you know that it's working. Now, here I'm going to just separate this stuff out. Again, got to mix it up, because only so much of it fit. Wow. And there's literally pieces flying towards this. So that's really building up a charge. So like I said, I wasn't quite sure what to expect here. I can feel it too. It's not something I can put my finger on, but there's definitely a charge in the air. We'll call it that. But yeah, look at, there's pieces of grass sticking this way into it. Wow, that's pretty wild. So I'm going to load this guy up, and you don't want to overload it. That's, again, these are all pretty much hard lessons that I learned. So here we're going to load that up about like so. And you close it up. All right. And now it's time to make some little glue dots out here. And we're going to start out with some small ones. Yeah, it's really, wow, that is. So what I'm going to do the next time around is not turn this on. Do all these steps you saw me do, then turn it on. So some of these, again, small. You want some small ones. How many times have you seen me on a video chopping up a larger grass tuft? So, and you can see we're working in a little bit of a stair step sort of motion here. And I'm only going to go maybe halfway on this. You can also see that we are trying to physically build up a little bit of a height on these. So let's just stop with that. Let's not go too crazy with that, and let's start to do a little bit of grass. Now, there's really no delicate way to do this. Just take the thing and you'll whack it. So see how the grass is already starting to stand up. But remember I was talking about timing? You got to do this fast. You can't be sitting around waiting, because all the while your glue is most definitely dry. Now you can actually move some of that stuff that's around it. You could also do this on some kind of, well, I don't know about a metal tray, but some kind of a pan or whatever, maybe even a little bit of a Tupperware container. So see, we used up all that already. Now you see why I mixed up quite a bit. Here we go. And we just, I know some say you wave it over the top. Well, you can Well, it's crazy. It's whack and wave. I like to just whack the container, get the stuff out there, and then start waving it around. And I've got myself some nice long grass tufts here because I went pretty heavy on the 6 mil. Pretty heavy on that 6 mil. Let's do it again. This is going to be the last application. I don't think I'm going to be able to get much more in here. There. Like I said, you don't really want to be touching that because I just did, just to see what happened. I could hear the spark. So, like I said, just act accordingly. Here, I'm going to see if I can't. Just blowing some of that away. Really don't want to get my face touching that metal thing. But look at those nice tall tufts. Look at that. So that makes me happy. I like seeing nice tall grass tufts. I really wish I had a whole bunch of these a couple hours ago when I finished up a few forest theme miniatures and realized, I had no grass tufts, I had no shrub tufts. Heck, I don't even know if I had any flower tufts, at least in my homemade variety. It's not to say that you don't get the store-bought stuff, either at your local game store, local hobby store, or, was it Hangar 18 is a place where I got these. Plenty of different, let's probably Miniature Market would have them, and I think the War Store is closed now. But anyways, here we got a couple more. Gonna load up our container over here, like so. Here, maybe get a little more in there, and repeat. So these are definitely of the smaller variety here, and you can see I've got this pretty close to my glue setup here. Here, let's perk some of these up a little bit too. And you always have to check and make sure, do you have enough left, or is it actually a little bit stopped up? Did you put too much heavy grass in there? I think you can, well, once I move my hand, you'll see just, look at how much grass is starting to pile up. There's grass all over the place here. So maybe a little bit of a vacuum cleaner, one of those handheld vacuums or something, if you want to clean up your area. Just something to be cognizant of. And then we're gonna do some of this too. Now I think the battery might be running a little low, so maybe I don't have as powerful of a charge. However, I'm gonna turn that off first and pull this away so you can see how it went through the whole thing. Now I'm gonna take my container there, try and get rid of some of the extra here. And now, bingo, look at that. I guess maybe I'll go grab some of the store-bought ones or whatever so you can see a comparison between the two. But this is about what I like to see. Look at that, nice and tall. Now you can see these are pretty much just green. Even though we mixed a few different colors together, hey, you could even see my air quote there. The predominant is this light green. So that's why sometimes I mix in the brown, even though it's technically a summer theme. I'll sometimes mix in the brown. Maybe I'll try that here. So I'm just going to add some of the brown to this, and then we'll see what the difference is to this. It'll still technically be a summer. Alright, let's move this out. Good. Thing is turned off. I'm going to add a little bit of the brownish 6 mil. Not much, just a little bit. Just a handful like so. I'm going to close this bag because now this stuff is not necessarily the cheapest stuff in the world, the 6 mil grass, but you can make, you see I just probably right here, that's maybe $7 worth of grass tufts depending on where you get them. Oh yeah, by the time we're done here, just in grass tufts alone, we might make close to $100 worth of grass tufts. They are not the cheapest darn things in the world. So you can see that already changed it a little bit. Now let's get some. Oh, I want to get me some 4 mil in here too. So I'm going back to my. Let's see. There's the summer grass. Summer grass. Put this in here. It did start out as a little bit of a quest for savings, and then it morphed into, well, I could have them anytime I wanted, because that was also an issue. Whenever I needed the tufts, people were out of them, whether it was a local store or whatever, and it was a pain just trying to get those things when I needed them. Not a good thing. So there's convenience, there's the customizing as far as the shapes of them, because you end up using way more of one type of tufts. I'm sure you've already, if you've used tufts at all, you've already found that, yeah, look, I've used up all of these, and look at all these other ones that are left, usually the big ones. Now you can see maybe slightly focused more on making the small ones. We're also going to try a different glue here. So we're going to try this. And now, let's get some of this, let's get the glue flowing here. And before I turn that thing on, and before I start having glue all over the place, I am going to fill up my wand here. There we go. Fill that sucker up. Now there's a lot of 6 in there, a lot of 6 mils, so it may, I don't want to say it's going to jam up right away, but it might have more of a tendency for that. So let's get this nail in here. Again, that puts the charge into our piece of cardboard right here. Alright, we have liftoff on our charge. This is also a bit more convenient for laying down our little nobules of glue. That's definitely a basing term right there. It's a little easier for me to build these taller. And I think I can get away with a larger application of these here. So now I'm going to make a few bigger ones because you haven't really seen that too much. I want you to see what happens also. So this is the next thing we're doing. And I tend to do this, maybe maybe it's just monkey sees, monkey does, because every grass tuft thing that you tend to buy has the small ones on one end and the big ones on the other. Okay, we have glue. We have a lot of glue. Those piles might be too high. We're going to find out one way or another. So let's go. And I can see a little difference in the color already. And this will take a few applications. I have to fill this thing up a couple of times. Heck, I could even, because I've got my board here, say I just had a whole bunch of that stuff. Wow, this is going to make some pretty massive grass tufts here. Alright, so we're almost out. Here, let's get some more of our mix in here. Real quick like. And again, I know this is probably driving you a little bit nuts just seeing my hands smacking this applicator here. But that's pretty much how it works. Now the other thing you have to keep in mind is the other type of glue, you don't really notice it as much. Here you can see the white of the Elmer's glue. Well, that goes away. It only lasts for a little bit. So here, I'm actually going to dump some of this out here so that I can dump that into here. We're trying to work quickly here. And I'm really going to focus on these larger tufts, because these things, I use them more on, well, if I'm doing bolt action stuff, I'll use them more on, say, artillery pieces and weapons crews, maybe large creatures. Every so often I will open up the container and just loosen up what I got in there. So here I'm gonna just take in what's sitting around on the table, making myself some nice big old tufts here. Boy, these things, these are gonna be like grass mountains right here. Now, we're talking about some of the future things that we want to do as far as making the shrubs and the flowers. Well, I found out the hard way that unless you have really tall tufts like this, you're not going to have flowers or shrubs, because you need something tall for that glue to adhere to. So this is the other reason why I'm trying to get you used to making these things a little bit bigger. Oh my goodness, these are going to be pretty colossal. So I'm going to do, just for the heck of it, as I'm taking some of that, this is just straight up brown 6 mil, and I'm just going to go right into the applicator with that for my last little go over this and see what happens. It's probably not going to be much more to adhere here. Haha, yeah, I did that. And that's basically it. So let's turn that off so we don't get sparked. And let's see how much of this we can get. You know, you can advise maybe just leaving this on here. What the heck? We'll just do so. Here's a rough application. It's not necessarily a static application, but big old tufts. Yeah, look at that. Like I said, that glue is gonna, when it dries, it'll be all clear. Not going to see it. There is a little bit of difference in color. I can see that this definitely has some more brown in it. Yeah, these will make some pretty nice, well, just grass tufts on their own, but these, flower-wise, these are definitely, you'll see this step repeated again with the flower tufts. Actually, what I may do is just take some of these and also use them for flower tufts. Speaking of tufts, though, we're going to move to spring. We're going from summer to spring and then to something like fall. So we're going to set that stuff up, and we'll be right back with that next. Now we're going to try some spring tufts. We've got the spring 4, and we've got this spring grass here. Like I said, you could use woodland scenics grass. There's plenty of companies that make this stuff. Now, hopefully this is a little bit on the brighter side from our summer. Let's see what happens when we open up the spring sample here, the 4. Just throw a little bit of that out here. Yeah, see, it's a little bit darker. We'll mix that in. And then we're going to mix in our tall grass. There we are. Cover this thing up. Believe me, when you have containers of static grass, cover those darn things up as soon as you can, because you will find that it will go everywhere and you will knock it over. That's just, it's inevitable. An open thing of static grass or gravel is going to get knocked over. That's just kind of the law of the universe right there. So we close it up. Now we're not going to mix any brown into this. This will be relatively short, but since I don't have a static thing going, this is clumped up here. So I really got to break this up, because otherwise it's going to clog inside the mechanism. And then I also have to mix it together here so you can see how much lighter that spring foliage is. Remember, the summer stuff kind of blended in with that 6 mil green, and here it's really sort of standing apart. It's the other reason why we're trying to mix this here. Now I suppose, now there's bigger versions of this. This is like the smallest thing. It's between $30 and $40. There are much larger ones. They can run up to about $100, but those are, now you're getting into the model railroading type thing, or let's say you want to use for doing a whole terrain board, that's where you want those bigger wands. And believe me, those things, they will make static grassing your terrain board a whole lot easier. I know people have made their own out of PVC pipe and all this other kind of stuff, but for me, I'm just going to buy the stuff because that is not my electricity, definitely not my area of expertise there. So I'll just let somebody else make the device and I'll just use it. I'm just going to go with this glue right here because again, it's easier to make my little stacks of stuff. Just looking to make sure everything's out of the way. I'm going to load this thing up first, actually. And like I said, you don't want to get greedy and load it up too much. I know it's more convenient to have it all loaded up ahead of time, but all it does is just gums up the works. So here we go. I'm going to put out some glue here and then turn that on. So we're going to go with our small. I'm going to make some more small ones here. Because the huge ones, they're interesting and all that, but pound for pound, this is what you're going to use the most. And I could just do smaller dots here. We'll experiment with a few small dots, really small, and see what we get. It doesn't hurt. It certainly doesn't hurt. So we'll do one more row here, I think, and then we'll get our static turned on, and we're going to start throwing static grass all over the place. And ignition, and here we go. So these will probably be a little bit easier to fill up with the grass, just because, well, the glue is a little bit smaller there. And as tempting as it is to just focus in on one thing and get it all filled with grass, it's not necessarily the best plan. So we're going to, again, fill this thing up here, and timing is everything. That's how I was not sure how viable this was as a video right here for you guys. And right now it's just for you guys here, just for you basing folks. This would be a little bit unusual as a YouTube live, probably. I think people would know, what in the world is he doing? And I'd also have to be way too close to computer type things. We don't want that. So here, let's go. Another load up here. And these things are really, boy, they just pile up fast. That is so cool. You have no idea how thrilled I was to be able to make these on my own and then have those really tall grass tufts. As disappointed as I was when I tried my first batch and they were not anything like the ones that I saw. I just had no idea that the key was the 6 mil grass. I didn't even know they made it. I had to really search for that stuff. So we're just going to keep on. And then here, I think you can see how that's moving, how the grass moves with that. Here, let's do a change in the focus there. Now, yep, just about out. Now I do remember just not all that long ago, someone asked if you can paint static grass tufts. I have airbrushed them. Now you have to cover the whole surface. It takes several layers. I mean, you really have to spray that airbrush to get at the innards, I guess, if you want to call it that. So I'm just going to pour this out here, shove that in there, and just do one last quick dump of this here onto the surface. So I don't know if you could see those pieces of static grass shooting on up into the... Here, I'll just run this over here. I'm going to turn this off. partially for safety, partially just because, well, convenience, and we'll gather up some of this. Here we go. There. I'll set that aside. Whoop, nope, actually I need that here. Let's get some of the excess out. You can see how much excess there was on there. And very nice and tall. Here, let's compare it to our original one that we did, and you can see clearly this lighter green than this. So success right there. It's subtle. It's definitely subtle. But I've got dozens of grass tufts now. It didn't take very long. Did not take all that long. Maybe we'll just make one more quick set. It's not like you necessarily need to see me do it, but I could use a few. And I got this grass here, and I just want to use that up. So I just want to make sure this thing was turned off. I almost grabbed this thing without looking first. And that's I highly recommend that you look before grabbing it. Now, our jeweler's blocks right here, they're really handy because that nail can go all the way through. Alright. We're doing the usual thing. We're going to fill this up. And what I might try and do here actually is make a few different shapes. It doesn't necessarily come out the way you think it will, but we're going to give it a shot. We got our brush out here. So, yeah, let's do this. I'll put out a few small ones again, but then maybe a few bigger ones here. Just like this size. And then I'm going to take that brush and we're going to do this. So I have no idea what's going to happen here. This might not end the way I want it to, but see how there's now a shape to them? They're not just round. Some of them are more horizontal, whatever. Alright, let's do that. Turn this on. And apply. I'm going to have to really work fast here because I got some big old piles of glue. And every so often I just have to check this thing, make sure it's not clogging up. So that's what I suggest. It's just you kind of shake it once in a while, free it up. Now this is, they kind of recommend this motion. Let's use that and see how that works. Yeah, I'm just going to loosen up what's inside there. So we'll try this motion for a while. Let's see what happens. I know it makes a little bit less noise, a little bit less of my grubby hands on the screen maybe. And let's throw a little more of our grass in there, shake that up. I guess I just got used to that hand tapping motion when I was making my other tufts when I wasn't filming. Now I know this is just, it sort of looks like a big old mass of grass, but when we turn off the machine, we should have ourselves some kind of shape to our static grass. Or to our tufts, I mean. So we're just going to, see every so often I just run this wand over the top here, and it basically pulls those things up. Yeah, I think you'll really see when we get into that next one with the flowers and the leaves and everything else, you'll really start to see what's the obsession with these tall, with the 6 mil grass and everything. Alright, got another load of grass in here. So either way it seems to work, whether I'm smacking the thing in the side or just doing this. And then I'm going to run this again over the top here just to make sure that things actually are. The whole point of the static grass applicator is for things to be kind of standing upright. I think that's why I like the other motion, because I'm already basically on top of the stuff and pointed down, whereas here it's almost kind of coming at it at an angle. So none too shabby. Now, turn that off. Give this a few seconds to lose that charge so I don't get a new hairdo. And we tap away our extra. And now we have much larger tufts. You can see the difference in size, but they still have their height. You can see there is a little difference in shape. And I don't want to use up what's left here. Good grief, there's just grass all over the place here. Look at that. So if this is just basically a piece of masonite right here. It's the same piece of masonite you see me using in the other basing videos. Here, I'm just going to throw some of that grass in there. I'll get some glue out here. Make sure this is in place. And it is important to have that touching the, what is that stuff? The parchment paper. It will sort of work if it's touching the cardboard, but it really does work better if it's in contact with the parchment paper. So these are going to be the smaller tufts once again. But I'm going to try something crazy here. Let's do just what the heck. I mean, it's might as well give it a shot and see what happens. Because if you don't, you'll never know. So we have our grass in here. And away we go. And I know it's kind of a crazy, quick gyrating motion here, but you gotta move fast. There's just no other way to do it. And I'm going to be really curious to see, do we keep that shape that you saw in the glue? I think we will. Now those are going to be pretty highly specialized tufts, certainly for something larger. Now, I don't know if you've seen my bark and branch basing method, but there was a few, and actually these were store-bought tufts that I used, and they had a few tufts that not necessarily like the angled shape like that, but they definitely were a bit longer. They weren't even ovals, they were actually just kind of a long, almost like a line of grass, and those were pretty handy, I have to say. So I'm going to use this. I just want to make sure that I get the grass here where I need it fast. This method definitely shoots out the grass faster. Oh yeah, that whole thing is almost empty. So we're just going to, again, throw a big old batch into here. So I think I'm gonna like these. Yeah, maybe along the side of a road, or you're trying to do some kind of a vignette of a river bank or something like that, or maybe you've got a swampy type of a thing, and you want it to just sort of follow the riverbank or whatever. That's where I think those would come in most handy for you. Here, I'm going to run this again over the top. Make sure that stuff is actually standing up. There we go. Is there any left in here? Just a little bit left in there. I'm going to throw a little more in there. I think we're just about done with this. Again, turn that off so I don't get a buzz. So we're going to call that done. Turn you off. Boy, that still had a bit of a charge on it. Alright, what do we have? Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, look at that. So it is possible to make different shapes. And where's my original here? Holy smokes, there's a lot of static on the other side of this. So you can see here two very nice different types of tufts. Now again, this is the stuff you just can't buy. You can't buy stuff like this. That's another reason for making your own. You do the things that you can't buy for yourself. So we will now move on to, well, fall/winter tufts. We're going to try a few different things there. Maybe make some lighter ones, some darker ones. So we'll be right back with that. We're going to start with those, I don't want to say dead grass, dormant grass, whatever, fall, winter tufts, maybe even desert tufts. Actually, they could kind of serve all purposes here. But what we'll just do is we're going to start out with these two. This is that sort of a 2/4 and our 6 over here. Just going to mix that together. Again, on one of our handy dandy trays right here. I definitely want to get some more of this type of stuff. I've got tons of the, as you can tell, tons of spring and summer, but not a lot of this. So yeah, let's get out our 6 right there, maybe even some more. And what we're going to do is we'll break this up the same way that we've done on the spring and summer tufts here. Mixing it together. Now what we'll do is we're going to do one with the light and one with the dark, and then we'll do another one where they're sort of mixed together. And then I'm going to also try some other, look, I've got, this is all the stuff we've kind of collected here, plus what I had before. So we have this huge thing right here, and we're just going to, we'll mix some of this in with our lighter color, see if we can't make a sort of a dormant summer type grass. But you can see the difference here, just how brown this is. Now I'm thinking that I might want a little more of my shorter tuft grass in there. Let's mix this together. Looks a lot like hay, that's for sure. So I got this mixed together pretty well. And I'm going to do now a mix of the tiny little dots and then some of those longer sort of stream type shapes that you saw. Alright, I'm going to load this thing up first before I add the glue in there. So just give me a second here to get that loaded up. Timing is everything. Yeah, comedy is timing. Well, if you missed your timing here, you got comedy. So we're doing some of the tiny dots in that stair step pattern. Really little tiny dots, and then we'll go bigger, like you do, like that. Maybe, yeah, we'll do another row here of these, and then maybe a row of slightly bigger. But I'm not going to do the long ones yet. Let's do that after we do these guys. And you know what? I just like this motion better because it is straight up and down. Now this has more of the 6mm grass in it, so it's going to be, the application is going to be a little bit different. Here we go. Anyway, already, wow, that emptied out fast. Oh my goodness. Here we are. So I'm really glad now that I didn't also do those other applications of glue because it's taking a little longer because this is so much more of the 6. There's a lot less of the 4 in there, and there's pretty much no 2 in there. And that's why it's important to have a mix. Here I didn't have a lot of that available to me, so such as it is. Here, let's get a little more of this in here, and I might even let a little bit of the green work its way in there. And let's do some more of our so you really do need all 3, because I tried making them, like I said, with the small stuff. That didn't quite get me the results, and nothing but the 6 mil is also not going to give you quite the right results. You need that blend of all 3. Still, it's not horrible. Here, I'll just try and work some of these smaller tufts again, and but we're really going through this fast. Of course, there's a whole bunch of it still sitting on our piece of cardboard here, or on our parchment paper. So I'll just run this over the top. Now, if the charge on the battery was stronger, this would pick up much more and move around the stuff that's on the parchment paper a lot more. Wow, that pretty much uses up a huge portion of it there. So what I will do is then turn this off and gather up my extra stuff here and do one last application before I try a few of the snakes. Yeah, look at that. It's all gone. Alright, so turn this off. Just going to take that out. It's easier to do it that way. And now there's a bunch more. But you can see we still, we still got tufts. So I filled up the applicator, ground it, turn it on, and I'm just going to make a few, some of these shapes here, see what happens. Maybe one down here and another one there, and just leave it at that. Push that up a little bit for you. Here, let's get some more grass in this thing. And these, they are trickier. No matter what, whether you got 2 mil grass in there or not, these longer, sneaky little shapes like this can be more tricky. So again, I'm just gonna get this out on the board here. It's a little easier for me to reach. Trying to let the static do its thing. And there is definitely, the static's doing something. There is no doubt about that. You can see it's pulling, as I said, that little container set to the side, it was pulling things out of the container onto the piece of cardboard. Which is why I do that little suggestion of maybe keeping some distance between some of this stuff. And just grabbing whatever grass is just sitting out here. And that is just about it. Turn that off, take that out, dump this out, and boom, shapes. Nice long tuft that we can use. And you can see the difference here. See, you can see more of the glue because we don't have as much of the 2 mil in there. That's sort of your filler. The 2 is your filler. The 6 is sort of your. That's what really gives you the shape of your tufts. Now let's try the lighter stuff here. And I'm just going to mix that in with what I got or what I have. Grammar. Okay. So we got this. Oh, that's very different. Wow, that feels really different from the other stuff. Actually, I'll put this where you can see it. That really feels different. I really wish I had a 2 mil in that size, or that color, I should say. Here, let's just use a little more of that. We'll mix this together. It's still going to be distinctly lighter than the other grass that we made. But you do have to break these things up. You could run them through, I guess, a strainer or whatever, but I wouldn't want to be the person having to get all the static grass out of that strainer. So there's another sort of a bale of hay there. And we're going to work with this. And then we'll see maybe doing, a hybrid one with some of that green in there. But I just want to see what we get from this first, because I've got 2 more pieces of cardboard left. Here's another one. And this wasn't supposed to be, this doesn't need to be a 2.5 hour video here. I think you're kind of getting the hint of how this all works. It's more just showing you what can go wrong. Because there's, again, things that I learned the hard way. See, that might be overstuffing it a little bit. Break it up. I'll find out soon enough if I stuffed it too much. Sorry, I'm going to clean off the glue thing here. We're going to just do less. We're not going to do quite so many. We'll go back to that original thought process there of just not so many of these guys. I'm just going to do 4 rows like this. I'm not going to make any of these any bigger either, just like that. It's best to keep a little bit of a distance between them. Found that out too. Alright, are we on? Yep, looks like we're pretty much on screen there. Wow, it's really tough to see that anything's coming out of here because it's so light. I really haven't used, actually I know I haven't used this by itself at all, so I definitely haven't used the lighter stuff on its own like this. So first time for everything. So here I see I gotta really break that up. See, that was just too much of a clump. Maybe it means just less of it in the applicator. Oh yeah, a lot more is coming out now. Oh my goodness, yeah, so with this, there's something, I guess we just learned a little something. If you are stuck with more 6 mil than everything else, just put even less in there. Oh my gosh, the static is just pulling it away from the thing. Actually, I need to pull this more my way. So now I'm really glad that I only put a little bit of glue out there. So just note to self for the rest of this, I might only do 1 row at a time here. And wow, that's all gone. Alright, that might be a little bit too much. Hopefully it'll just still come out. Looks like it is. Again, I can hear it. I don't think you can, but I can hear the little pieces of grass kind of popping around. And wow, it's interesting how it It really chews this stuff up fast. Wow, that's now here. I think that's something I'm gonna just do from now on, is just put less in there, not try and fill that sucker up as much as I have been. That just seems to be a better plan. Literally just one little pinch like that. And I think that's our last application for now. Yep, it's empty. Turn it off. Take this thing off. And get our excess back into our little container. And we have ourselves some very light grass tufts. Now we will compare it to, yeah, so we have a distinct difference between the two. And I think with what I've got left here, I'm just going to make a few larger ones. See if it's possible. So I'm going to load up the thing here. Get this attached. Get our glue on this. Who knows? Let's give it some more. Do some more shapes here. I just looked to make sure that wasn't turned on, because then just like yeah, that could be interesting. So let's do those shapes, see what we get. Turn it on. Start some static here. Good grief! It's like the cord of this thing has hair all over it. That's all the static grass. And yep, that's empty. And what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to dump this in with some of that green foliage then, and we'll just make a few different types in the kind of the final segment here. Just some final thoughts. Every so often you just have to look and see, you know, do I have anything left in here, or is it jammed? Because there's not much going on. I'm tapping away here. And yeah, let's get a little more in there. And I think we're going to have ourselves some neat little shapes out of this too. There we go. Wow, those are pretty darn tall. And we need to fill that up again. See what we got in here. And that should do it. So we'll turn off get our power turned off here. Get this taken out. And we have some nice little shapes to our tufts there. So there is your fall/winter dormant grass style tufts. What we'll do is now we're going to start doing a few mixes. On our last one, we got one larger sheet, and we'll try a few different types on that and see what we come up with. So we'll be right back. In our last segment here, we're going to try a few combinations of stuff. Now this is essentially leftover of mostly the light dormant fall grass, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to mix in some of the spring grass. This is obviously the short 2 and 4 combination here. I'm curious to see what we get. Now this is going to fill out this grass. This might actually be a more interesting spring combination than where I had the lighter green 6 mil grass. Actually, I'm kind of liking this. This is interesting. So we'll compare this to that original so-called spring mix that we made. Might even mix a little more too into this. And because we have more of our short grass, it might also cover a little bit more. So here, let's throw a little more of this, even more of this in here. What the heck? We'll see what we get. So I'll mix this in real nice. That's an interesting light color. You can see that the brown is, it's just absorbing some of that brown. We could probably do a little bit more sculpting, a little more shapes like we talked about. So let's get some of this into our little mechanism here. I think that is on screen, so we're going to power on. We will start with some relatively small tufts here first. We'll do maybe 3 rows of this. We want to essentially try a bunch of different combos and colors on the same sheet. See what they look like. That's good enough. We got power. And let's start to apply here. So this bigger sheet is going to be, it's a little bit harder for me to work around here. That is an interesting different color. So it's not quite fall. It's got an interesting combination of colors to it. So I'm just filling this up again. So we'll go back to this motion here. And then like that. But every so often I've got to check and make sure that we actually have grass in there. There's not a whole lot left in there. Whoops. Yeah, that's the other thing I tried to avoid doing, is trying to fill up the container directly where all the static is, because, well, I think you can imagine what happens when you do that. And we're just about out once again. So it does fill things up like we thought. Having the shorter grass, we see a little bit less of the glue. There's a little more depth to our tufts. I think we're just about empty there. Because remember, the 2 and 4 is going to go through that strainer a whole lot easier than the 6. And that's why it's just so much easier to cover these things. Having that combination. Alright, so we've just about used up everything there. We're going to turn this off so we don't get zapped. So we've got ourselves some lighter tufts. Now, I mean, what the heck, you can, in a pinch, do something like this. Heck, this is how we used to apply static grass back in the day. So don't necessarily be shy about doing that too, if you feel the need. But so there's a couple of rows of that. Now let's try some of the larger shapes, because we've got that short grass. Might even mix a little more of that in there. Heck, I might even just throw some of this directly into my container. Wow, that is just so fine compared to the 6 as I'm mixing that together. Alright, we got our glue here. Let's make some of these fun little shapes. We can make the larger circles and all that, but I'm intrigued by these. And I'm just going to do one more. There we go. It's just, maybe I'm just entertaining myself here. I don't know. But I think these are going to be really fun, especially in some of those larger bark and branch bases. And I've got a few of those. I'll bring those out and just show you what it is that I'm talking about with that. We'll kind of do a final thoughts segment here, because why not? Again, this is not the longest video in the world. Wasn't meant to be. This is just to give you a few ideas here. And who knows, maybe save you some money, because I'm telling you, these grass tufts are not cheap. Maybe they're a little less expensive now than they used to be in the past, but I can remember them being not cheap at all, as in pretty darn pricey. Now there's other types that I haven't been able to make, ivy and that sort of thing. And then there's the tall foliage that the Green Stuff World does. That kind of stuff, that's another moment where it's just, you know what, they make the stuff, I'll just let them make it and I'll get it from them. But these kind of things, plenty of companies sell static grass. There is no shortage of companies selling that. There's got to be a reason why they just sell plain old static grass and not only tufts. So there you go. Am I just about, yeah, just about done with that. What I'm going to do now is just take some of the darkest stuff. Some of the darkest green and the darkest brown. Mix that together and see what we get. Just contrast it with this. So you can see I just have a big old pile of grass right here. Turn that off. Let's see. Aha! Well, that would help. Let's see what we get when we turn this on. Oh, yeah. There we go. Well, I want to see what we got with that turned off. Well, we have, I mean, it's still static grass. Here, let's put some of this on. And the glue is still wet. Okay, so you can, it's still possible to add stuff on there. That's why it was acting a little bit crazy, and I'm looking at my thing. Now, either it might have shut itself off because maybe the battery's a little bit low. That's possible too. I'd have to go back and watch the video to see if I forgot to turn it on. But you'll have to, I mean, those are the kind of things that can just happen. Because when you're recording stuff, your mind is in 5 different places at the same time. Okay. That's interesting. Wow, a lot of the shorter 2 mil came out, but almost none of the 6. And I'm just going to run this over the top here. So we may have some really different looking tufts here, since apparently the static was not on for a while. So we'll turn that off. Dump this off. So they're still tufts, but again, some actual different shapes. Now, let's just set this aside. Let's find our darkest. Where is that? There's our darkest green. Let's find. This is what I'm actually looking for. Here is this. I want the dark brown. We'll combine that with the spring and see what happens. So I'm just going to dump this into the overall repository of grass. You can see we got all kinds of different colors in there. That would be obviously, I'll just save that for a piece of terrain. I got plenty of terrain projects. Actually, I doubt if I'll be able to squeeze it in before ReaperCon, but I just realized that from Frontline Gaming, the Table War folks, I have a cobblestone winter mat, and it was supposed to be for Stalingrad, and it still will be, but now it's going to be for Game of Thrones, and I'm going to make essentially some ruined farmhouses and that sort of thing. Real simple type of terrain pieces, nothing that's super complicated. Here, let's mix this all up together. But I think that is, well, it's going to combine snow effects. It's going to combine the terrain work there. A little bit of painting, a little bit of airbrush work. And I think I could actually film the airbrush part of that now, because that was my experiment, remember, on the Blackheart model's bust. So we mix this all together. Might mix in a little more of the two. So this is giving me a whole different look here. Yeah, that's a whole different look. Very interesting. And this time, I'm gonna remember to turn that sucker on. But first, I am going to fill this thing up. So we got some stuff in there. Alright, it's on. We're going to do small tufts again. Start with small tufts. Work our way bigger. Now to do the winter tufts, I've got so many of them. I just don't feel the need to make my own. And that is winter tufts as in little bits of snow on them. So I'm going to go with these 3 quick rows here. And now add our static grass. I don't know how much different this is going to look. It should technically be darker because we've added that, the dark green, or no, the dark brown winter style or fall style tuft. Let's throw a little more in there. And just want to make sure I get this spread out here as evenly as possible. So that is the other thing too, is I think this runs on a D, or no, it's one of those, I think it's not a D battery. I think it is your, what is that, your classic little 9-volt or something like that, the little rectangular one. So I'm gonna definitely get myself a few more of those for when we do our flower tufts and such. We'll review this process briefly, but we're not going to do all this and the flowers. We'll do this and a few of these, and then we'll spend most of the time on the actual tufts because there's a lot of different colors to deal with. So this, I think it looks a little bit darker. It's hard to say because we just have, oh yeah, I can see it's darker now. I just looked up at the screen. No doubt about it, that is darker. I can see that dark brown showing through. So maybe this is a late summer tuft. So all I can say is that when you see what the name on the package, it's always just, it's such a generalization of that season of tuft or whatever that usually it's not a very accurate color. So we turn that off, take this out, get this dumped in here, and oh yeah, I can see the difference. Maybe you can't, but these 3 rows clearly are darker. And what we'll do now is we'll do one last thing where we make maybe just some larger ones here. Just not maybe in a shape like those other guys, but just a few big ones and see how those turn out. They'll have a little bit of shape to them. I learned the hard way making these things just large ovals is really boring. It looks like a large oval of grass, kind of like the large plop of snow that people will sometimes put on their bases and not vary the edging of it enough. All right, yeah, let's just keep piling this in. And then our last row here. I think this pretty much will cover all the bases for you, at least when it comes to doing your homemade grass tufts. Just again, get some more in here. Now, do you have to get all this stuff at once? No. But it's okay. Let's say you invest for this thing and a whole bunch of the different static grasses. Let's say you spend $60 to $70 tops. That sounds like a huge investment to make when you realize that we have probably already made that much in grass tufts. And this hour here alone, I'm gonna say we're pretty close to at least $50 to $60 worth of grass tufts, and we've barely put a dent in any of the supplies. In fact, it's what we've done here is completely negligible. I could make 100 more of these videos and not have to replace the supplies that I got. So I think that might be the best indication of savings right there. It's sort of a force multiplier. Is there more time involved? Yeah, there is. But there's also time involved in waiting. Oh. It'd be handy if that was plugged in. Yeah, let's just do this real quick. Turn that off before I grab it. And that's good enough. But now we've got, see the irregularity to those shapes? Alright, what I'm going to do now is just look at all this right here. That is a huge heap and pile, which is going to go into my main bank right here. And you'll see me use this as far as terrain goes. You're definitely going to see this. You'll see this grass again. See, I can mix that all up. Look at all those different colors and oh yeah, nice big old pile of grass in there. So now this, good grief, I could probably make 10 more sheets like we just made out of this. And there's probably even more, there's more stuck to the static grass applicator right there. So we're going to be right back with some final thoughts in a second. So as for some final thoughts here, I wanted you to see these are the bark and branch bases that I was telling you about. So in areas like this is where a long tuft is handy. Over here, smaller tufts. Now, I blended some of these tufts in using just some general flock. Here is a figure here. There's a grass tuft right there, another one over there, and a third one over here. So those are the homemade tufts, pretty much the last of my homemade tufts. You can see they work fairly well. And you can see that I've incorporated some of the new Green Stuff World long grass foliage, or tall foliage, right? Yeah. Using basically this is a sort of a base. Stick that stuff in there, and then it just sort of anchors it in. Let's check out this here. So these bears, you got that long slate type stuff here. Here's another one of these long, like that one. See, he's right next to it. It's a long thing of that static grass. They're also blended in there again with the flock. There's another, that's a shorter one there. So you can just see where these longer, narrower ones and that different sort of, see, we're working our way around that rock, because this actually wasn't bark and branch. This was some kind of a resin base, and this is a big old metal bear and a big hunk of metal rock sitting there. Well, I had to try and blend these two together, and there was no way the edges were going to match. So instead of resculpting that, that is where these shapes fit in. Say to go around like this. Here's another example here where you've got grass tufts blended in with the flock around the edge, and then the tall foliage. So you've got basically 3 layers. Here's another one. Your shortest layer, which is just the flock. It's not grass, it's flock. You've seen me use that before. Then a grass tuft, and then the tall foliage stuck into the grass tuft. Okay, so this is that, trying to get those different textures, different heights, right? Look at that. Now we've got several different colors that we made here. So there's your, and shapes. So here's the lightest one here. Let's look back at some of our earliest ones. As you can see, we've got that dark sort of summer type foliage, that brighter sort of spring foliage there. And now this is one where we made the large tufts there, and then there's more of that winter fall. So we've got all kinds of different tufts to play with. I hope that it gives you some ideas. You don't have to do it exactly like this, especially just remember to turn things on. Here's another one of the darker summer ones. So the next one of these that we do, we're going to try and add, like I said, we're going to try and add some of the flowers to these and some of the little leaves to make a shrub tuft. And what I mean by that is right here. You can see there's little leaves stuck onto that. That's basically a grass tuft like what we made, but then with the leaves stuck over the top of that. So I appreciate your support on these things. If you can drop a like on this, that's always good. Makes YouTube happy, helps me out, that sort of thing. And we'll do plenty more basing tutorials. But this is also leading into some terrain stuff too. You know how I like to have things lead in one to the other. So you'll be seeing terrain videos probably in the next month or so. I'm making some terrain for Song of Ice and Fire. But until then, thanks a bunch, and I'll catch you on the next video.